All right, Alex, continuing to talk about the craziness that has been the transfer portal with some of the top players. One of the biggest shockers of the transfer portal was the fact that Keanu Tanuvasa entered the portal. And that was someone that when he first entered the portal, there were reports that came out that, hey, it was USC and Michigan were kind of the front runners. And you even kind of brought up, hey, now BYU has kind of worked their way in there too. And there's been a large push on social media as of like just last week to get Tanuvasa back to Utah. We still don't know what he's going to do. And I think one of the things I liked about your reporting too is you said, hey, BYU succeeded, and this comes to us from your X account, BYU succeeded in getting Tanuvasa to the portal. And it feels like it changes every 6 to 12 hours on where he'll go. Well, as we sit here on Sunday, December 29th, what have you make of this whole saga? And I mean, just how surprised were you to see Tanuvasa enter the portal?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I mean, there's some stuff that I can talk about, some stuff I won't, just because of how fluid the situation is. But yeah, that was a shocker. That was a shocker to say the least. I'll tell you this, and so whether people want to say it was USC that got him in the portal or BYU, BYU was making overtures to him towards the tail end of the season, just like those other guys, right? And the family told him off. Mm-hmm. So, now and then all of a sudden, he goes in the portal right after putting out that awesome video, right? And motivational, like such a motivational tweet, getting everybody hyped, almost like mocking Cam Calhoun, like nice little subtle shade, right? Mm-hmm. And then he does that. Oh man, but I totally understood the fans freaking out the way that they did, just because they felt burned. I get his reasoning on a little bit, even though it's a lot about the money, right? Let's be honest. I mean, there's other factors at play, but yeah, that was pretty shocking, and yeah, I mean, it seemed, it was crazy because all of a sudden everybody's just like thinking and turning their attention to BYU. Then USC and Michigan get in the picture. USC loses Bear Alexander. And yeah, it went back and forth. And, I mean, I know Friday was nuts, okay? Because Friday morning, I know BYU staff felt confident that he was theirs. And then midday started swinging, and I started hearing the BYU people like around the collective and others just weren't confident anymore. That it sounded like it was going to be more USC, right? And then you start seeing all the stuff pop up that night about. So when I was doing the the stuff with the air balls, I don't know if you saw that, but I was just in one of those moods, right? So me and good old Pi Ute decided to just start doing like, any gift that you could think with misses, right? 1 miss, 2 miss, 3 miss, 1 laughing emoji, 2 laughing emojis, 3,
referencing BYU missing on the guys.
So those, so I mean, Barton and Snowden, right? And then talking about Tanuvasa, and Tanuvasa was the one right there where, again, and who knows, like I said, it's so fluid every 6 to 12 hours, but at that point in time, BYU fans were, BYU people had lost their confidence. It sounded like USC. And then I'm starting to hear like, well, it's USC, but there might be a chance for Utah, right? It's like, what is going on here? And, you can thank the Fano brothers plenty on helping getting them back into the game, because I mean, they room together, and so they're extremely, extremely close. Yeah, man, it's
so you feel like their relationship, depending on what continues to play out, you feel like Utah's been able to get themselves at least back into the race in large part because of those relationships he has with his team.
And one of the big things too for people to realize and understand is Spencer Fano, he's still probably one of their highest paid guys at Utah, and deservedly so, but he could have taken a lot more money. But it's about loyalty to him, and it's about knowing where he's been developed and where he's going to continue to succeed. I mean, let's be honest, Spencer, with just a similar year to this year, okay, he could fall off slightly, but just a similar year to this year, and he's a first day draft pick next year.
You think he will be?
Oh, 100%, 100%.
I feel like he
one of
definitely has a chance to be. I didn't know. It's been, with every year it changes with who comes out and things like that. But I mean,
he's on the trajectory of being another Penny Sewell, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like you take a look at that and it's like, okay, well, that money's nice, right? I mean, JT, you'd be sitting there like, hey, oh my God, that money's nice. I could do this. I trust myself, right? But oh, hey, what about the others that got me here and and have put me in this situation, right? Like, do I take this or do I trust the process, right? And so I'm sure that's kind of what Spencer's drilling home to Keanu right now. I mean, look, you got a guy in Luther Ellis that made it to Pro Bowls. I want to see it was a 1 or 2 time All Pro, leading your position group.
Yeah.
And you came in, you weren't a heralded recruit. Look what you're doing. Why? It's like, can you hold back one more year, right? One more stinking year.
Yeah.
And then be able to go and, make all that money back in the pros, and so that's the thing that he's got to weigh right now. I mean, can Utah match it? Yeah, sure. They can get up and they can match it. I mean, it was a decent difference. I'll tell you that. I'm not going to tell you the amount.
And the difference, there's a substantial difference between BYU's offer and Utah's offer for Tanuvasa.
Everybody's offer
for everyone's
Tanuvasa, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and so, but I know that there's still been the ongoing conversations, and we'll see where it goes, but yeah, it's an interesting situation. I know 2 nights ago that Utah started feeling extremely confident that they were going to reel him back in, so I feel like it's kind of been a little bit silent since then, right? And so I'm just kind of feeling like he's kind of going through the process and just winding things down, and everybody should hopefully have an answer pretty soon here. But yeah, that was such a weird situation.
Do you feel like BYU's NIL is in a stronger position than Utah's NIL Collective at the moment?
Yeah.
I mean, they landed Carson Ryan. They were able to flip Hunter Clegg. There can be other circumstances that happen there, and Utah was able to lure some other guys back. But in a world where NIL is such a big thing, to lose even some players to your direct rival is going to raise those questions.
Yeah, and look, Carson Ryan, yeah, that was a good job learning him. But at the same time, too, tight ends are going to be used a lot more different in this offense. So you look at things, and I think you and me kind of talked about this last time, or maybe I talked about it with OC. Landon King is probably the better tight end type option for Utah's offense going forward, right? It's not that Utah didn't want to. Utah wanted to keep Carson. I mean, let's be honest, But when you start weighing things, and that weighing things from Utah's end, weighing things from Carson's end, granted BYU didn't do a great job with the tight end this year, but their offense is still more suited for it, yeah. Totally lost my train of thought a little bit on the other stuff because we started talking about Carson. So, is it stronger? Yeah, I mean, look, BYU's got a lot of billionaires. They do. Well, let's admit that, right?
Well, we know who they landed on the hardwood, right? They landed AJ Demanta,
right?
But then we also talk about them missing out on those football guys. So I think that raises those questions about their ability to land top talent on the gridiron.
Yeah, and I know I've talked about this, but Chris Hill is a beloved athletic director, right? The one thing that he screwed up on is not holding his guys accountable that were over the gifts at the time, the donor gifts. They didn't have budgets from what I was told. Okay. They didn't have quotas that they needed to hit. Okay. And so when push came to shove, what I've been told over the years by multiple people, okay, is that Hill would then go to the big fish. Well, the big fish are starting to fade, obviously, right? Huntsman's passed, others are getting older. The middle ground guys that were working their way into where they could be the big fish were getting neglected. So everybody that wants to trash Harlan, I get their beef with him on certain things, but Harlan has done a lot to bring certain boosters into the picture and get them to donate more, but Utah's behind in large part. And again, people can blame Harlan all they want. Utah is behind in large part because, one, how Chris Hill handled those situations back in the day, and two, because Harlan wasn't the most pro NIL at the start of the NIL era. So
which there were a lot of people that time too.
Right. You mesh those two together. That's your issue. That's your problem, right? So fans, stop blaming Harlan on all this stuff. A lot of this again goes back to Chris Hill. The other thing to it too is, and I've been talking with some guys that are pretty intertwined within the situations, within some of the negotiations and stuff like that, and knowing how BYU is doing their stuff, knowing how Utah's doing their stuff. The way that BYU is doing some of these things, and again, I got to be careful on how I talk about these things because I don't want, the BYU fans to start jumping down my throat. Oh, Alex is just a fraud. Everything he says is fake. Oh, come on, man. But, BYU has some tactics that they use with trying to lure some of the guys in with money promises and like the points that they're going to be getting it and so on and so forth that haven't fully matched up. Okay. To the promises. So BYU has more money, they also can make a little bit more unrealistic promises and not follow through. It's interesting. So yeah, I mean, Utah is behind. Utah is definitely behind in that area. I do know that there's some stuff going on behind the scenes where some more money has supposedly been driven into the NIL portion and stuff like that, and it's been pretty recent because I know some boosters are pretty fed up with some of the stuff going on behind the scenes. Hence why, obviously, I mentioned stuff on Twitter. So yeah,